The sun hung low in the sky as the Johnson family arrived at the opulent hotel in Miami, its towering glass facade glinting in the golden light. John, a tall man with a confident stride, led the way, a broad smile plastered across his face. He adjusted his designer sunglasses and turned to Sarah, who was busy fixing her hair in the rearview mirror. "Isn't this place just incredible?" John remarked, his voice filled with pride. "I bet we'll be the envy of everyone at the country club when we tell them about our stay here." Sarah, a petite woman with perfectly manicured nails, glanced up and nodded, though her expression suggested she was more focused on her appearance than the grandeur of the hotel. "It's beautiful, John, but let's not forget to post about it on social media. Our followers need to see this." Her tone was more of a command than a suggestion. Meanwhile, their teenage son, Lucas, was slumped in the back seat, absorbed in his phone. He barely registered the hotel's impressive entrance, scrolling through a barrage of messages from friends back home. "Yeah, whatever," he muttered, his disinterest palpable. As they stepped into the lobby, the air was thick with the scent of luxury, fresh flowers, polished marble, and an almost imperceptible hint of expensive cologne. A stylish chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the plush furnishings. John approached the front desk with an air of entitlement, ready to assert their status. A tall black man in a crisp suit stood behind the counter, his demeanor warm and welcoming. "Good evening. Welcome to the Grand Meridian Hotel. How may I assist you today?" Michael, the hotel manager, flashed a polite smile, his professional tone contrasting sharply with the Johnsons' brashness. John's smile faltered slightly as he took in Michael's presence. He straightened his posture, a hint of condescension creeping into his voice. "We're here for our reservation. The Johnsons. You know, the upscale suite with the ocean view?" He emphasized the word upscale, as if it were a secret code. "Of course, Mr. Johnson," Michael replied smoothly, his fingers dancing over the keyboard as he pulled up their reservation. "We have everything prepared for you. If there's anything you need during your stay, please don't hesitate to ask." John leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You know, it's a shame that a hotel of this caliber has to hire staff like you." His words dripped with disdain, the underlying racism evident to anyone paying attention. Sarah barely concealed her smirk, while Lucas, feeling a twinge of embarrassment, shifted uncomfortably on his feet. Michael's expression didn't falter. He remained composed, though a flicker of hurt crossed his eyes. "Thank you for your feedback, Mr. Johnson. I assure you, we strive to provide the best service possible," he responded, maintaining his professionalism despite the tension in the air. As they received their key cards, John turned to Sarah, whispering loudly enough for Michael to hear, "I hope the rest of the staff isn't like that guy. It really ruins the experience." Sarah chuckled lightly, her eyes scanning the lobby as though searching for someone of higher status to validate their sentiments. Once in their lavish suite, with its sweeping view of the ocean, the family settled onto the plush furniture. John flopped onto the sofa, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "All right, what's on the agenda for the week?" he asked, ready to dive into their plans. Lucas, still scrolling through his phone, looked up. "I was thinking I could check out some local spots, maybe meet some new friends," he suggested, a hint of eagerness in his voice. John's expression hardened. "No way, Lucas. You're here to enjoy the luxury we've worked hard for. We'll stick to our own kind this week. You can't just go mingling with, well, you know." His tone was dismissive, as if Lucas's desire for connection was an affront to their status. Sarah nodded in agreement, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at her son. "We have a reputation to maintain, honey. Let's not stray too far from our circle." Lucas sighed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface as he returned to his phone, the weight of his parents' prejudices pressing down on him. The air in the room turned heavy, laden with unspoken tension. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson hue across the ocean, the Johnsons' excitement for their stay felt overshadowed by the growing rift in their family values, one that would soon be tested in ways they could never have anticipated. The Johnson family settled into their plush corner table at the hotel restaurant, the soft glow of candlelight shimmering off the polished silverware. John, with his tailored suit and self-satisfied grin, surveyed the room as if he owned it. Beside him, Sarah flicked through the menu, disinterested in the world around her, while Lucas sat quietly, scrolling through his phone, his thumb moving in a blur. Their moment of luxury was interrupted when Michael, the hotel manager, approached their table with a professional smile. "Good evening. I hope you're enjoying your stay. May I recommend our chef special for tonight?" John's expression hardened slightly at the sight of Michael. "Sure," he replied flatly, his tone laced with condescension. "But let me guess, it's something exotic, right? You know, I prefer my food without all that flair." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, a clear challenge in his gaze. Michael's smile faltered for just a moment before he regained his composure. "Actually, sir, it's a classic steak dish prepared with locally sourced ingredients. I assure you it's quite popular among our guests." His voice remained steady, though he felt the sting of John's words. Sarah rolled her eyes, casting a dismissive glance at Michael. "We'll just have water for now," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "We can't trust the recommendations of someone who wouldn't know fine dining if it hit them in the face." Lucas, sitting across the table, felt the heat rise in his cheeks. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, wanting to shrink away from the conversation. "Mom, can we just order something? I'm starving," he muttered, hoping to diffuse the tension. "Just a moment, Lucas," John barked, his eyes narrowing. "I want to hear what this guy thinks we should eat." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a mockingly conspiratorial tone. "What do you think, Michael? Do you serve fried chicken here? Or is that too cliché for you?" Michael's face tightened, but he remained professional. "We have a variety of options, sir. I assure you, our menu is carefully curated to cater to all tastes." Right, John scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Well, I'll tell you what, you can't go wrong with a burger. I bet that's what you eat on your lunch breaks." Lucas couldn't take it anymore. "Dad, stop it." He blurted out, the words tumbling out before he could catch them. He could see the hurt in Michael's eyes, and it made him feel ashamed. "Stop what?" John snapped, his expression darkening. "I'm just having a bit of fun. This guy probably thinks he's better than us, right?" He turned to Michael, smirking. "You do, don't you? Think you're better than us?" Michael took a deep breath, determined not to let the situation escalate further. "I'm here to ensure you have a pleasant dining experience, sir. That's all I aim for," he replied, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, sure," John replied, rolling his eyes. "Let's just get our food, will you?" As Michael walked away, Lucas felt a pang of guilt wash over him. He wanted to say something, anything, to make it right, but he felt trapped, caught between his father's arrogance and his own growing discomfort. "Dad, that was really rude," he said quietly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Rude? That guy needed to know his place," John replied, snorting as he glanced at the menu again. "People like him don't belong in positions of authority. They should stick to serving." Later that evening, as the Johnsons returned to their suite, they laughed about their dinner, unaware of the impact their words had on Michael. He stood in a corner of the restaurant, wiping down a table, his heart heavy with disappointment. He overheard their laughter echoing through the dining area, their conversations laced with superiority and pride. "Can you believe it?" John chuckled. "We're paying for this, and they think they can treat us however they want." Michael clenched his jaw, the weight of their laughter pressing down on him. He vowed to maintain his professionalism despite their disrespect, but deep down, he felt a swell of anger. How could they be so blind to their own prejudices? As the night wore on, he reflected on his experiences as a manager, the countless times he had encountered guests who thought they were above others. Each time, he reminded himself of the importance of dignity and respect, even when faced with ignorance. But tonight felt different. Tonight, he was determined to let their actions speak for themselves. The sun shone brightly over the hotel's opulent pool area, where guests lounged on plush chairs, sipping cocktails and enjoying the warm Miami breeze. Sarah adjusted her oversized sunglasses and flipped her perfectly coiffed hair over her shoulder as she surveyed the scene. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed less enthusiastic. He sat on the edge of a lounge chair, scrolling through his phone, his fingers tapping absently on the screen. "Can you at least try to look like you're having fun?" Sarah snapped, her voice tinged with irritation. "This is a beautiful place, and we're supposed to enjoy it." Lucas looked up, his brow furrowed. I just don't get why we have to keep pretending everything is perfect. Can't we just relax? Before Sarah could respond, Michael, the hotel manager, approached with a professional smile. Good morning. I hope you're enjoying your time at the pool. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Sarah's expression shifted, her lips curling into a dismissive smirk. I'll be fine, thanks. I'm sure you have more important things to worry about than catering to us. Michael's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. Of course, ma'am. Just let me know if you need assistance. As he turned to leave, Lucas felt a surge of empathy. Wait, he called out, surprising both his mother and Michael. I think it's great that you're here. Do you work at the hotel full-time? Michael paused, a flicker of appreciation crossing his face. Yes, I do. I've been with this hotel for several years now. It's a wonderful place to work. Sarah interjected sharply. Lucas, don't get too friendly. You shouldn't be associating with people like that. Her tone dripped with condescension, and Lucas felt a knot tightening in his stomach. He shot his mother a look of disbelief. What do you mean, people like that? Lucas's voice rose slightly, a mixture of confusion and anger. He's just doing his job. You treat him like he's less than us. Enough, Sarah snapped, her eyes narrowing. This is not a conversation we're going to have. Lucas, feeling trapped, watched as Michael walked away, his shoulders slightly slumped. You don't understand, Mom. It's wrong to judge someone just because of their job or their skin color. Lucas, Sarah said, her voice now calmer but firm, I know you're trying to be noble, but you need to learn your place. We don't associate with those kinds of people. Meanwhile, Michael had retreated to a nearby staff area, where he shared his frustrations with Jenna, a fellow hotel employee. It's disheartening, you know? I try to provide excellent service, but their attitude makes it so difficult. It's like they don't see me as a person. Jenna nodded sympathetically. It's exhausting dealing with guests who think they're above everyone else. Just remember, you're here to maintain professionalism, no matter how challenging it gets. Michael sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. I know, but it's hard not to take it personally. I've worked so hard to get where I am, and they act as if I'm just part of the furniture. Keep your head up, Jenna encouraged. You have a lot of support here, and what they think doesn't define your worth. Just focus on providing the best service you can. Back at the pool, the Johnson family lounged as the afternoon wore on. John joined them with a drink in hand, casually throwing his arm over Sarah's shoulder. What's going on? You guys look like you just lost a game of golf. Just having a little disagreement, Sarah replied, her tone dismissive. Lucas was trying to befriend the help. John chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. Let me guess, he was trying to chat with that manager again? What a joke. They can't even connect with us on our level. Lucas, overhearing his father's comment, felt his heart race. Dad, you don't really believe that, do you? Just because he's the manager doesn't mean he's beneath us. Enough with this nonsense, Lucas, John said sharply. You're too young to understand how the world works. There's a reason people are in certain positions. The family continued their conversation, unaware that nearby guests had overheard them. A couple exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and disappointment. The mocking tone of the Johnsons echoed around the pool, revealing their true colors, as they failed to recognize the impact of their words. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a golden hue over the hotel, the Johnsons remained blissfully ignorant of the consequences their behavior would soon bring. The clinking of silverware echoed in the lavish dining room, where chandeliers cast a warm glow over the Johnson family. John sat at the head of the table, a self-satisfied grin stretched across his face as he surveyed the opulent surroundings. Sarah, seated beside him, flipped through the menu with a haughty air, while Lucas stared blankly at his phone, wishing for a distraction from the evening ahead. As the waiter approached, it was none other than Michael, the hotel manager. He wore a polite smile, but John's eyes narrowed at the sight of him. Ah, look who it is, John sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Our esteemed manager. I trust you're keeping up with the standards here? Michael took a breath, maintaining his composure. Good evening, Mr. Johnson. I hope you're enjoying your meal. Is there anything I can assist you with tonight? Actually, yes, John replied, leaning back in his chair with an arrogant flourish. You can explain why a place like this would hire someone like you to oversee their guests. It's quite a puzzling decision, don't you think? A hush fell over the table as Sarah's eyes widened, but she quickly masked her surprise with a forced smile. Yes, I mean it's a luxury hotel. You'd expect a different caliber of management. Michael's brow furrowed momentarily, but he held his ground. I assure you, my team and I are dedicated to providing the best service possible. If there's anything specific you'd like, I'm here to help. Help? John laughed, the sound loud and mocking. What could you possibly know about service? I'd be surprised if you even know how to tie a proper bow tie, let alone run a hotel. Before Michael could respond, a woman at a nearby table intervened, her voice steady but firm. Excuse me, sir. I couldn't help but overhear. That's quite disrespectful. He's here to assist you, not to be belittled. John turned his attention to her, his expression darkening. And who are you, exactly? Just another patron who thinks they can lecture me? Mind your own business. The woman's face flushed, but she didn't back down. Disrespecting someone based on their appearance or position is never acceptable. You should be ashamed. Lucas shifted uncomfortably in his seat, feeling the weight of the moment. He wanted to speak up, to defend Michael, but the words caught in his throat as he watched his father's arrogance boil over. Michael, visibly hurt but composed, nodded to the woman. Thank you for your support, ma'am. I appreciate it. He turned to John, his voice calm but firm. If you have any issues with your meal or service, I'm happy to address them. Yeah, right. John spat, waving a dismissive hand. Go back to doing whatever it is you do, and leave the real guests to enjoy their evening. With that, Michael took a step back, his heart heavy. He had encountered countless rude guests, but the blatant racism and entitlement from the Johnsons cut deeper than he expected. As he turned to walk away, he felt the eyes of the other patrons on him, a mixture of sympathy and disapproval. In the privacy of their extravagant suite, the Johnsons reveled in their perceived victory. Did you see the look on his face? John boasted, leaning back against the plush couch. He didn't know what hit him. Sarah chuckled, her eyes glinting with misguided pride. Honestly, I can't believe he had the audacity to approach us. He should know his place, right? Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, his phone forgotten in his lap. A wave of unease washed over him as he listened to his parents boast about their actions. I don't think it was right, Dad, he finally blurted out, his voice shaking slightly. He was just doing his job. John shot him a sharp look. What do you know about it, Lucas? You're just a kid. You don't understand how the world works. But I do. You can't just treat people like that because of how they look or because of their job. Lucas's voice rose, a mixture of frustration and confusion. It's not fair. Sarah rolled her eyes. You're too young to understand the complexities of social standing, Lucas. Sometimes, people need to be reminded of their place. John nodded in agreement, the arrogance in his demeanor palpable. That's right. We work hard for what we have, and if someone can't keep up, that's not our problem. As they continued to joke and boast, oblivious to the consequences swirling just beyond their reach, Lucas felt a growing sense of shame. He realized that the pride his parents took in their actions was nothing more than a facade, hiding a deep-seated ignorance that he couldn't ignore any longer. The next morning, the Johnson family strolled into the hotel lobby, the vibrant Miami sun streaming through the glass doors. They were eager to book an exclusive tour, a lavish excursion that promised to showcase the best of the city. John approached the front desk with an air of entitlement, flashing his credit card like a badge of honor. Get us on the best tour you have, he commanded, as if the staff were merely extensions of his will. The receptionist, a young woman with a polite demeanor, typed away at her computer, her expression shifting from friendly to concerned. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, but it appears your reservation has been canceled, she replied, trying to maintain her professionalism despite the tension in the air. What do you mean cancel? John's voice rose, piercing through the lobby's calm atmosphere. He glanced at Sarah, who raised her eyebrows in disbelief, and then at Lucas, who stood awkwardly, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. We didn't cancel anything. You must be mistaken. The receptionist sighed, her fingers hovering above the keyboard. I understand your frustration, but it looks like we had to make adjustments based on the feedback we received regarding your previous interactions with our staff." "What feedback?" John snapped, the color rising in his cheeks. "This is ridiculous. You can't just cancel our reservations because of some hurt feelings." Lucas, feeling a pang of embarrassment for his father's outburst, stepped closer to the desk. "Dad, maybe we should just look for another tour," he suggested quietly, but John waved him off dismissively. "Not a chance. This is unacceptable." John turned to the surrounding guests, who were now watching the scene unfold. "Can you believe this? They treat paying customers like this." Suddenly, Michael, the hotel manager, emerged from the adjacent office, having overheard the commotion. He approached with a calm demeanor, though his heart raced at the sight of the Johnsons. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson," he said, his voice steady. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I'd like to clarify the situation." John scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "Oh great, here comes the help. What do you want, Michael? More apologies? You think we're going to sit here and let you belittle us?" Michael took a deep breath, maintaining his composure. "It's not about belittling anyone. The cancellation was a direct result of how your family treated my staff. We strive to provide exceptional service to all our guests, but we also have to ensure that our team feels respected and valued." "Respect?" John laughed mockingly. "You think respect is given based on what? Your skin color? This is a business, not a charity. I demand to speak to your superior." "Sir, I can assure you that my team deserves respect regardless of their background. I'm here to help, but I can't do that if you continue to disregard the impact of your actions," Michael replied, his voice unwavering. Sarah chimed in. "We're the ones who are paying for this experience. You should be grateful we chose your hotel." Her tone dripped with condescension, as if they were doing Michael a favor just by being there. Michael felt a surge of frustration, but kept his focus. "I understand that you're upset, but this isn't about money. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels safe and respected. I encourage you to reflect on how you treat others in the future." "I don't need a lesson from you, and I certainly don't need to reflect on anything," John shot back, his voice laced with anger. As Michael turned to leave, he felt a sense of resolve wash over him. This wasn't just about him. It was about the values he upheld as a manager and a person. He walked away from the scene, knowing he needed to take action. He headed straight to the management office, determined to discuss the incident with the hotel's upper management. "Let's have a conversation about our policies and how we can better support our staff," he said, his voice steady but firm. The management team nodded, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. Michael knew that the hotel's reputation was on the line, and he was prepared to defend it. As he spoke with management, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that standing up against prejudice wasn't just a personal battle. It was a responsibility that came with his position. The Johnsons may have underestimated the power of respect, but Michael was determined to show them, through action, that pride often comes with a cost, and sometimes that cost is humility. The morning sun poured through the elegant curtains of the Johnsons' suite, illuminating the luxurious furnishings. However, the family's excitement was abruptly disrupted when they discovered their belongings had been moved to a much less opulent room. John's face turned a deep shade of crimson as he tossed aside the thin comforter, revealing a standard-sized bed and a view of the parking lot instead of the breathtaking ocean vista they had anticipated. "What the hell is this?" John barked, pulling out his phone to call the front desk. "We pay top dollar for this place, and now we're shoved into a closet?" Sarah, equally dismayed, flipped through the sparse amenities of the new room. "This is unacceptable. We demand to speak to the manager," she fumed, her voice echoing off the sterile walls. As if on cue, Michael, the hotel manager, stepped into the room, his expression calm and professional. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson," he said, his voice steady. "I hope you're well. I'm here to address the situation regarding your accommodations." John scoffed, crossing his arms. "You should be aware that this is ridiculous. We deserve better treatment. I expect to be moved back to our original suite immediately." Michael took a deep breath, maintaining his composure. "I understand your frustration, but after your previous interactions with the hotel staff, management has decided to take a different approach. Your behavior has consequences, and it has been reflected in your current accommodations. What are you talking about? Sarah interjected, her voice rising. You can't just treat us like this because we had a little disagreement. Michael's gaze sharpened slightly. It was more than a disagreement, Mrs. Johnson. Your comments and actions towards the staff were not only disrespectful, but also damaging to the hotel's environment. Respect is earned through how we treat others, regardless of their position. John stepped forward, his arrogance flaring. You think you can lecture us? Who do you think you are? I'm the hotel manager, Michael replied evenly. And I believe that everyone deserves respect, including those who serve you. This is not just a matter of privilege. It's about humanity. The tension in the room thickened, and Lucas, who had been standing silently by the door, felt a swell of shame. He finally found his voice. Dad, maybe we should listen to him. You've been really rude. John turned to Lucas, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. Don't you dare take his side, Lucas. This is between adults. I'm not taking anyone's side, but I think we messed up, Lucas said, his voice shaking but resolute. You can't just treat people like they're less than you. Michael's expression softened slightly as he looked at the young man. Thank you for your honesty, Lucas. It's not easy to speak up, especially when confronted with family. But it shows strength and integrity. As the room fell silent, the hotel management arrived, standing firmly behind Michael. The head of management, a stern woman with an air of authority, addressed the Johnsons. Due to the nature of your behavior and the uncomfortable environment that it has created, we've made the decision to evict you from the hotel. What? John spluttered, incredulous. You can't do this. We're guests. Yes, and guests are expected to respect the establishment and its staff, she replied coolly. We will arrange for your departure and assist you in finding alternative accommodations, but your stay here is over. As the gravity of the situation sank in, John glared at Michael, resentment boiling beneath the surface. You'll regret this, he spat. Michael held his ground. No, sir. It's you who will have to reckon with your actions. But I hope you take this as an opportunity for reflection. As the Johnsons gathered their belongings, Lucas lingered behind. He stepped forward, a flicker of remorse in his eyes. I'm really sorry for how we treated you, Mr. Michael. You didn't deserve it. Michael smiled faintly, appreciating the sincerity in Lucas's voice. Thank you, Lucas. Change starts with acknowledging our mistakes. You have the power to be different. With that, the Johnsons exited the hotel, their pride shattered, while Michael stood tall, knowing he had upheld his dignity. This experience would lead him to a well-deserved promotion, a testament to his resilience and strength in the face of adversity. The Johnsons, on the other hand, left with a heavy burden of reflection, forever changed by the lessons learned in the luxurious hotel that had turned into a crucible for their pride.